Ukraine is a post-Soviet nation working to embrace democracy, a drab country struggling toward a brighter future. Ukraine is an ally of the West, but is not a member of NATO. Tonight, there is more evidence that our own government may be foolishly escalating the situation between Russia and Ukraine. The White House telling the media an invasion remains imminent, even as Ukrainian sources have publicly stated it is not. Earlier this week, Ukraine was angered by the Biden White House telling Americans to evacuate the country, rhetoric the Ukrainians thought was escalatory and unnecessary. Now, whether the White House is trying to escalate this situation or simply act tough after a Biden flub from last week remains to be seen. But somehow tonight, there's even more bad news for Team Biden on the national security front. When it rains, it pours for a White House that seems utterly clueless of late. For the first time since our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, ISIS is now back on the radar again. Fighters from the Islamic State attacking a prison in northeast Syria late last week, an effort to free thousands of terrorist soldiers that are housed there. ISIS fighters using young boys as human shields. The Pentagon confirming yesterday U.S. aid to the Syrian Democratic Forces that fight ISIS, which initially just began as airstrikes against ISIS, now, yes, includes American ground support. ISIS evidently has some amount of control over that prison, which houses 3,500 of their fighters. Tonight, our troops are fighting ISIS in the Middle East. Let that sink in. This White House is failing at every single turn. It is truly astonishing to watch. Just so you can remember, this is where the previous White House left things with ISIS.
We defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. Think of that. And we knocked out Soleimani, and we knocked out al-Baghdadi. They didn't know what the hell happened. And I'll tell you what, our country was respected again.
It certainly was by our enemies. There is no doubt about that. But after our disaster in Afghanistan, the terror group is back and looking stronger than it has in a long time. The New York Times writing, the fact that ISIS was able to mount multiple coordinated and sophisticated attacks is evidence that what had been believed to be desperate sleeper cells are reemerging as a more serious threat. It's pretty astonishing, isn't it? How many different things can one White House screw up at the same time? It's been amazing to watch. So we're already fighting ISIS again, and we may have to spread our military over two different regions very soon as Russia remains poised on Ukraine's border. The White House continues to talk very tough about what the United States will do. Take a look.
If any Russian forces move across the Ukrainian border, if there's a renewed invasion, it will be met with a swift, severe, and united response, not only from the United States, but also from our allies and partners.
So that's what it sounds like from the State Department. We're going to show you what Biden has to say here in a second. But there's a lot happening in the world right now. Plenty of problems for this White House, so many it's really hard to keep up. But the president's schedule was shockingly fluffy today. The president decided to spend part of his day visiting a local business, a local small business named Honey Maid, trying to boast improvements to the economy with the press watching, of course. And then the president got ice cream and posted a picture of his cone on social media. Reporters at the first stop did manage to ask the president about Ukraine.
There is not going to be any American forces moving into Ukraine.
So Ned Price sounds one way, the president sounds another. Let's hope they stick to what Biden is saying here, that American troops won't have to go in and fight in this country. But if American troops don't go in, and as we talked about last night, German troops don't go in, can NATO and Ukraine really fend off the Russians? Would any other countries even help? Would any other NATO countries even help in that fight if Germany and the United States, two of the biggest allies, are sitting on the sidelines? In regards to White House escalation of this standoff, former U.S. Ambassador to Germany and Newsmax senior national security analyst Rick Grinnell says putting our troops on high alert was a ridiculous move by an administration that is clueless in this moment. Here he was earlier today on National Report.
Well, I think that we're in the same problem where Washington immediately goes to military solutions before really doing some serious diplomacy. We've dismissed the diplomatic side of this, the diplomatic strategy, so fast. For President Biden, he falls back to his old ways of 40 years, which is just to put forward a military option immediately. This is not what Donald Trump was doing. He was using the power of the White House and the power of persuasion and sanctions and bullying to get the best diplomatic solution.
As somebody that knows a lot about what's going on right now, especially in regards to Germany, essentially Biden skipped a whole bunch of steps in the normal diplomatic process, went straight to a heavy-handed answer. Might have overstepped things. However, the White House has consistently put forth the idea that the moves that they are making are supported by our closest allies and partners in NATO, which is, of course, a lie. One of the most critical NATO members is Germany, massive economy, big military. And it's now crystal clear that the Germans, fully reliant on Russia for energy, have absolutely no interest in this fight whatsoever. Listen to the specific details here again from Rick Grinnell.
What we have seen now is the Germans continue to not pay their fair share. They're not supporting NATO at the level that they should. There are a number of countries that are doing that. But now you see the Germans, they're telling Estonia, other members of NATO, not to provide hardware for Ukraine. They are the one country that is pushing forward this idea that we should not be too tough on Russia. This is a crisis for the largest economy in Europe. The Germans are literally wanting to be everybody's friend. They want a foreign policy like Switzerland. They want to sell cars everywhere. They don't want to take hard positions.
They want a foreign policy like Switzerland. That's very well said. And it does explain a lot of what's happening right now. Germany just wants to act like they're not even in the room. Another great NATO ally. NATO's looking worse and worse. So what does NATO look like when Germany and the United States both stay on the sidelines in some kind of a potential conflict? Well, rather unimpressive militarily, we could start with that. And would other NATO allies even support Ukraine without the United States and Germany showing their troop support? If Russia really is making a move, it probably would be a great time to do it. They've effectively removed the Germans from the conversation, one of the strongest NATO allies. If something happens, it will be very interesting to see if the president can stick to his word on no troops.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.